What's up? It's your boy, Glyphix, and I just got done reading The Devil in the Flesh. So this is kind of my little summary of my thoughts about it. I might do a more kind of in-depth video coming up, so hit the subscribe button if you want to see that. I'll also do kind of a non-spoilery review style video, but this one right here, it's gonna have spoilers in. So watch out. So, Devil in the Flesh is a book written around 1915, 1916 by a really young kid called Raymond Radiguet. And he was about 19 when he wrote it. It's actually absolutely insane. One of the big things around this story when it was released is that everyone was saying, how can this kid write with so much emotion, understanding, philosophy about the world, and experience as well, and only be 19 years old. Some people said, "Oh, he didn't write it; it was written by his editors. It's just a marketing ploy." Others said, whatever's in this book, it doesn't matter, even if it seems good, because he's just a kid. He doesn't really understand." I mean, Raymond himself actually had a few quite good responses to that, which you can look up. Maybe I'll link them in the bottom. But along the lines of, what does it matter how old I am? Have I not lived a full life up until this point? At what point can you say someone is ready to comment on life? Only when they're dead? Surely, when do you expect this to happen? So he was quite an interesting character himself. But the book, just to summarize it real quick, it's quite short. I think it's about 250 pages. And it's set in 1914, so during the war, when this kid, 16 years old, ends up... Well, kid, he doesn't really act like a kid, but anyway, he's 16. He ends up meeting this woman who's 19, who has just gotten married to a soldier who's out on the front. And, well, they fall in love. If you couldn't see that one coming, big surprise. And Raymond, not Raymond, what's he even called in the book? Mind blank. But the two of them end up madly in love. Absolutely crazy about each other, spending every minute that they possibly can together, and completely forget about the rest of their lives. So the story is it's about the feelings that he has towards her, about the way they act together. The main character is his youth comes across, and he's not likable because of it. He says himself, the way he treats her is not good. But he can't control his feelings. He feels jealous, he feels angry, but it all comes from a place of love, and you can really kind of feel that. And long story short, it's a tragic story, and she dies in the end, which is extremely sad. But what happens during the book is you just see this kind of spiraling downwards of the two of them together, both as bad as each other almost, but the way that it's really interesting, in fact, the way that he looks at her frequently throughout the story. He describes her as being his kind of slave almost. She'll do anything I say, whatever I say, she'll do it. She doesn't even listen anymore. She just says yes. He doesn't get her to do nothing gross or anything like that. It's just like, hey, buy this furniture. That's like the first time they met. He's like, buy this furniture. She's like, yes. However, really, like I mentioned before, the person who comes across worse to me is him, is the kid. And you kind of give him a bit of a pass because he's 16, but really it's him that is the main antagonist in this story. The way he acts with her, he cheats on her, he tries to rape someone at one point in the story, a friend of hers, in fact. Then we kind of just see him being more and more possessive. You know, the two of them together are just as bad as each other, you know, but he's definitely worse. So the story, what makes it interesting is just like the torrent of emotions and feelings that come from the both of them, but just seeing the way that he reacts to her and the way he treats her, like I said, often badly, is such an interesting way that it kind of, you can apply it to a lot of different relationships in your life. I don't mean, you know, romantic relationships necessarily, but you can apply it to a lot of different things. And the way that it's written is so accurate, and it's so, I mean, I shouldn't bring in the fact that the writer was only 19, because it's kind of a, you know, it's extraneous. It's not really part of the story, but you can't help thinking with that knowledge, wow, this guy is absolutely amazing. And he actually died when he was really young. I think mid 20s, possibly early 20s. I have to check that, but yeah, it's really sad. And when he passed away, it was a big mourning and everything in the literary world, because they said they'd lost a genius. You know, he came out with this novel, and there was one other novel and some poems and things. So I'm kind of jumping point to point here, but another really sad thing about this story is it's actually partly autobiographical. So he at one point said, no, none of this happened. It's all made up. Just maybe some names, whatever. But it came out later that, in fact, it is semi-autobiographical, and he really, when he was young, had a relationship with someone whose husband was out on the front. And so the real Marthe is her name in the story, and her husband really existed. And the story of her husband is actually really, really sad and quite terrible. He basically spent his whole life thinking about this, in the shadow of this story, and eventually he said, hey, you know what, we're over it, we're past it. They moved actually a lot. They moved from town to town, you know, every single time. Obviously all the neighbors, the whole town knew this is the guy whose wife cheated on him whilst he was away at war. How awful is that? And it kind of just haunted them their whole lives. And actually he passed away about 2 years after her, so they did stay together. And when he died, he passed this book on. It was The Devil in the Flesh, and it was filled with notes. So writings in the margin, pieces of paper, all this stuff that was just so kind of petty almost. I mean, I feel for him. I can understand why he's upset. Fair enough. It's just, it was filled with things like, in the story, they're, you know, sleeping together in the wife's house, so the husband's house as well, and he wears the husband's pajamas. And written in this book, in the notes, in the margins, was, oh, see, I didn't even wear pajamas. See, look how untrue this book is. And it's like, mate, I feel for you, because who are you trying to convince here? Okay, I don't think you're trying to convince us, because we're all past it. We just love the book, huh? That's okay. That's it. You know, you ended up living your whole life with this woman. She died 2 years before him. Like, who are you trying to convince? You know, it's sad. It really is sad. But overall, anyway, the book it's fantastic. You know, it's a literary masterpiece. You know, that's not me talking here. I don't tend to call books literary masterpieces. Who am I to say that? It's just, it's an absolute classic that is on many a top 100 books list, and not just for the reason that it was so amazing. He was so young. You know, that obviously adds to the tragedy surrounding the whole story, and the fact that it was partly true. But the book itself is just fantastic. Really easy to read, really gripping, and it just kind of drives you along. You know, really kind of gives you that feeling of, I need to keep reading, because this is just, escalating. It's like a train that's slowly speeding up, going towards certain death. So it's a really gripping read. Really recommend it. So anyway, thanks for listening. This has been Glyphics with a few thoughts on The Devil in the Flesh, a book I liked very much. I really recommend you read it, and follow for further book reviews. I've got a few in the pipeline coming up. I'm also going to do a more non-spoilery review of this, and I might also do a bit of a more structured discussion of the book, seeing as this was kind of a bit all over the place, but something that might be a bit more helpful for anyone that's studying it. So follow if you want something like that. And drop any comments down below, because I really want to discuss this book. I don't really have anyone to discuss it with right now. No one else I know has read it. So drop any of your thoughts if you agree, disagree, whatever. And drop a like as well. I've been told it helps YouTubers. I wouldn't know yet, And yeah, thanks for listening. Peace.